Welcome to the Power of Integrity podcast, where leadership aligns with principles. I'm Ralph Adamo, your host, and I couldn't be more delighted to have today's guest, Pamina Barkow. She is the CEO of Personal Injury Navigators. She is a trustee at the University of California, Irvine. Welcome, Pamina, and thank you for coming on the Power of Integrity podcast.
Thanks for having me, Ralph. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, this should be a wonderful conversation. My hope is to understand and have our audience understand a little bit more about Pamina and her personal journey and her professional journey that leads right up to today. Could you be kind enough to share a few minutes with us about that whole travel that you have made in your life and if you made in your profession, and just tell us where you are today as well?
Sure. I'm originally from Chile in South America. That's that long, skinny country. I was born there during a time of Pinochet's dictatorship. And wisely, my parents thought land of opportunity, land of the free, let's go to the United States. So I came here when I was 8 years old and have been happily an American ever since. I've been in healthcare for about 20 years now. I've always been drawn to helping others in whatever way I can. And that led me to this profession, which I love. I started off as a clinical nutritionist, interested in food and healing through the body. I believe that so much of our health starts with what we do in our daily lives, those daily habits, what we put in our mouths, how we move, sleeping, all the basics that today are no brainers because we hear about them. But back then it was kind of a really innovative thought to think about that in terms of medicine. And I met my late husband, and we started Orange County Pain Management Clinics. It was a really innovative thing back then, 20 years ago, where we put together what, let's call it, Western medicine thought with integrative thought, which was, hey, you're in pain, let's check out your nutrition. Let's check out your daily habits. And today that's called integrative medicine. And there's so much written about it and studied about it, and that's what we practice. But that is in the field that I'm in. I was deeply in the neurosciences for many, many years: pain management, orthopedic surgery, neurosurgery, neurology. Those were the kinds of clinics that we owned, ran, grew. My husband was the medical director, and I was CEO. And he sadly passed away in 2018. And at that point, people came to me and they said, hey, there's no way that clinics are going to be able to run without their medical director. That doesn't happen. This happens to widows all the time. And I got offered to sell the business many times, but always at discounts. And it was one of those sort of life moments in which I said, hey, what do I want to do now without my husband? We'd always grown our businesses together. And, I really took a moment to search inside, and I didn't want to sell the clinics, at a discount, unnecessary. I did a national search for a new medical director, and we continued growing Orange County Pain Management until I sold them just a few years ago to a national conglomerate. And upon my exit, they asked, hey, would you like to run West Coast? And once again, I had to search myself, and I decided, no, I'm going to take this a different direction. And when I thought about alignment and what serves me, I had a lot of different opportunities, but my heart always keeps coming back to those who really need a voice in the healthcare system, who need my advocation. And out of that, Personal Injury Navigators was born, where we are advocates for personal injury victims through the system. We are healthcare people helping them navigate through the intricacies of a healthcare system that is uniquely for personal injury patients. So whether it's helping them coordinate between their lawyers and their doctors, we are people that can find the right resources. We're people that get them to the right doctors. We're people that advocate for them to see patients quicker. And because that is an event that is drastic, oftentimes life altering, and somebody has to be there to advocate for them. And that's us. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow, there's so many things came to my mind there. I am so sorry that you lost your husband. He must have been a young man that had passed.
He was, I mean, much younger than he should have, and we had a 3 and 5 year old at the time. So unexpected, he fell ill, and obviously a life altering event to be a young widow with two young children, with such an unexpected loss.
Oh
Yes.
my gosh, I'm so sorry. But you have picked yourself up by your bootstraps and you have moved forward. And I love the use of alignment. One of the things that was coming to my mind was the old adage of, may our medicine be our food and may our food be our medicine. I think I was hearing that in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Words that I live by. I mean, outside my office right here, I've got my vegetable garden. So even though what I do today isn't nutrition per se, those are words that I live by and my whole family lives by. And I truly live that through and through.
And the injury navigators, that process. So you're not necessarily, because I think you said working with the patients or clients' lawyers. So you're not representing any of that legal portion. You're just helping them either get to the right places and fast track through the systems, especially those folks who are probably still in some shock, trying to recover mentally, not just physically, from the injuries.
I'm a healthcare CEO, so I'm not an attorney, and I don't have a vested interest in any clinic anymore. I sold my clinics. What I do is I find the right resources for patients. I've been in this industry a long time. I know everyone. If a patient needs to be seen, I can pick up the phone and call some of my friends and say, "This patient's in bad shape. You need to get them in, please, in the next day or two." I'm the person, I think, that sits in the middle and helps to be sort of a conductor of what is happening and saying, "Hey, we need to get your car out of the impound. You need to go see some specialists, and I know some of the best, and let's get you there." So if you need a lawyer, I've worked with all of them as well over the years. So guess what? Let me tell you what you should expect, and here's some of my favorites if you want. But yeah, I don't. I sit in the middle, I conduct, and I advocate. First and foremost, I advocate for the patients to get the best care, to get the most care, to get the quickest care. And whether it's care, whether it's getting them food, at times, whether it's getting them rides to doctor's appointments, just there's a lot to navigate through a system when you get into a car accident, when it's drastic, and some of us have more resources than others, but for those especially where resources are scarce, or elders, where they don't have as much family around, and others to help them through this, we become invaluable resources sitting in the middle, making sure that the system is working in their favor and not against them and overwhelming them.
Yes, and I have to tell you, as long as I've been around practicing in financial planning and financial advice, I have this is a completely novel area for me. I've even had a family member who was in an automobile accident. It
Yeah.
was a head-on collision. It was so severe. Fortunately, our family member was not found at fault, but the other individual that was found at fault, regretfully, had actually died in that accident. That's how severe it was.
Oh
12 days in the hospital, 13 days in rehab. And as a
gosh.
family member, we had to figure out how to navigate what facilities, what places, what rehabs, what not an easy task. And I had no idea, just a little like when I had to find nursing care or assisted living facilities for my own mom, did
That's
I
right.
learn that path. And gosh, and I knew there were consultants out there, almost like a place for mom and those types of folks. But I had no idea this existed. So this is really fascinating to me that there is somebody who can come in, intervene, and advocate on behalf of patients who are probably not in good mental state after
That's
that
right.
shocking blow.
That's right. I think it's a somewhat innovative concept. I saw the need. It was a bit of blue skies for me. It came out of being in the industry for so long and seeing patients be lost in the shuffle. This is not something that your primary care is going to direct or really knows about. This is not what they go to school for. So there was nobody in the middle helping conduct anything. At best, the paralegals are saying, "Hey, we know some doctors, go to some of these," but they're paralegals, and it felt like there needed to be healthcare people standing up, for patients saying, hey, we need more. We need to do more. Why are we doing this? Why aren't we doing enough? Here's more resources. To your point, there's sometimes trauma centers. Sometimes there's loss of lives. There's all, anything from a whiplash to, unfortunately, some of the families that lose loved ones where they all need care and they all need guidance to places that are going to be life-changing for them in one way or another. For some patients, it's just they can't get into a car for a while and dealing with the trauma of that. And somebody, holding their hand and saying, we've got you, we understand what that's like, and let's get you to care for the trauma itself. So there's all kinds of facets here that really touch my heart deeply. I haven't heard of anybody else doing this either. And I think it's just something that touched my heart. And I felt like this is where I'm needed.
Wow. I commend you. Tremendous work endeavor that you're taking on and doing for
Thank
those.
you.
I really admire that. Well, shifting to our topic for today's discussion, tell me, what does the word integrity mean to you?
It means it's such a multi-layered subject. And I really thank you for having this podcast. It's made me search deeper within myself. We take this for granted sometimes that, the word integrity, and I've really had to search within and say, put that into words. It means that I'm coherent, that I have alignment with myself on the inside, that my thoughts, and when I sit with myself, they align. That the way I act when nobody's watching is also in alignment with those thoughts and who I am. And so when I'm in the world acting and being me, there's a complete alignment of all of the pieces, and that is my mind, my heart, my soul. Moving on to how am I acting when nobody's there? How am I acting out in society? And are they all aligned, one, and coherent, acting together to do good, to be a positive source in this world, in alignment with a greater good?
Fantastic. I don't think anyone has used specifically the word coherent, and I love that coherence. I think what you're saying by alignment is actually an extension of integrity, to be integrated, right? What I'm
I
doing on
love
the
that.
inside and on the outside is identical or highly alike. Yes.
Yes, I hope I act the same, whether you're in the room, nobody's in the room, billions of people in the room. It should make no difference. I should be exactly integrated, the same human.
Yes. I love this. Love our conversation already. So, can you tell us about a defining moment in your career where integrity cost you something, but you made
Oh,
the tough decision?
I can tell you when it cost me, there's so many, I think there's so many small examples along the way, but I wanted to give you a big one because sometimes integrity costs money. And I think sometimes people attach a lot of value to that. We all do, right? For life, for living. I was in the middle of a very large merger and acquisition last year. And to put this in perspective, that particular deal was worth $140 million. Um, and we went through due diligence, and there we found things that maybe the medical societies may or may not have found okay. Let's say they're in the gray zone. But I think it was certainly enough for me and my partners to pause the deal and really think about how do we do this? We approached the partners on the deal about it. They were not intent on changing, because of what we had found. They found it an integral part of their business model. And I think it really made me think about what sort of people do I want to be in business with? What sorts of people do I want to align with? And after spending a year on this deal, hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal, drafting all of the documents and going back and forth, ultimately we decided to walk away from the deal. And so I would say that's a moment where integrity cost me really big bucks, but I don't regret it for a single day.
Yeah, because what would it have cost you to gain the whole world but lose your own commitment to self, huh?
That's right. It's built on sand that way, and I refuse to do that. I like as a business person to build on solid foundations, and that requires a foundation of integrity. And I truly believe that we're better off building businesses built on integrity and solid foundations that cannot be shaken. That's the right way to do things.
Yeah, because if it's ever aired out, if it's ever shown in public, it stands up.
That's right. And I never want to be on the flip side of that.
You don't have to remember the truth. The truth goes with us,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, I need cliff notes on that. Yeah.
Yes, yes. It's only the lies we have to remember. So we just tell the truth. We don't have to worry about remembering them. They always go with us.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, tell me something. You've been in leadership in the past. Now, when it comes to those that follow you, if you call them employees, contractors, how does integrity play a role with the relationships you have with those that follow you and trust their workplace with you?
You know, I try to be very transparent. I try to share information. There's very few information in business that's like secretive. In fact, I highly believe in a lot of transparency. If somebody has a question, answer it as best as I can, even when those questions are hard. I'll never forget the day my husband passed away, and I had to go into our clinics to announce it. And you know, there was never a thought of how do I do this? You get there and you just tell the truth, and with the information that I had. And I do my best knowing that when I have more information, I'll share more information. When I have a plan, I promised those employees I will have a plan. I'll figure out how to make it through this, and it's going to take all of us, and we'll come up with a new plan. And sometimes that requires being vulnerable, and meaning that you may not have a plan, you may not have all the answers, but I think that that's transparency. It's to be meet everything where it's at. So just honoring the fact that I don't have all the answers. Sometimes if I messed up, I messed up. Take ownership of that and say, hey, that one's on me. I could have done things better, or I made a mistake. Taking ownership of it and being transparent in what's taken place, taking responsibility for what's been done, and treating others well, pay them on time. It's so weird to me, being a business owner myself, when I hear of other businesses like, oh, they're not paying their contractors, or they don't follow through on their contracts. And it starts off with things that may seem minor, but they build along the way. So, paying people on time, saying what I'm going to do, following contracts that I sign up to do, being a person of my word. So if I, make an oral contract with you, or say I'm going to do something or show up somewhere, I'm going to do that, and yeah, I think it's the little things that build to the big things here, with those around me. So, I'm a huge believer when it comes to with employees and groups of people near me, really thinking about organizational behavior, thinking about cultures. But I think that those are created little steps at a time, by building trust. And I think trust is built by transparency and honesty, and showing up every day, you know, and just following through.
I've got a little bit of a giggle because I had a business coach some 27 years ago. And what you just said, he had packaged into one of his coaching lessons. And he said, there's in, to be 95% ahead of the pack, you need to do four basic things. You just described them. I'll give you his packaging. He said, listen, you got to show up on time, which I heard you say. You got to be cordial. He would say, you got to say please and thank you. You got to do what you say you're going to do, and you better finish what you start.
I love that.
Right? All those things I heard you say pretty much in that description. He may have packaged it differently, but the fact of the matter is you're embodying all of those. And so you are one of those 5%ers that's way ahead of the pack simply because you're doing things. There's a saying by Jackie Cooper. He was a sales trainer. He says, it's the things you do that you don't have to do that will always determine the difference when it's too late to do anything about it.
I love that saying. Wow.
Right?
Yeah. And you find most successful people, it's in the small stuff. It's, exactly what you and I were talking about. They're going to show up on time. They're going to your point, be polite. They're going to say what they're going to, if they say they're going to do it, they're going to do it.
Right?
There's going to be follow through there. They're going to take good care of your contacts when you connect them. I mean, it's seemingly tiny things. It's just being a great human. But you put that together and it's really powerful. So
Yes.
there's no magic formula. Yeah.
No, right. It's the incremental elements along the way that do it. And my son would go to Athletic Republic, and that's where they would train kids. And above the door entering the gym, there was a sign that says, "Today I do what others won't. Tomorrow I do what others can't." And I thought, what a wonderful policy for life.
Oh, I
I,
love that.
right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, let's go back to so you talked about the $140 million transaction and how embedded in that was some things that weren't right. But I'm wondering, have you encountered a situation where that other party you're relating with, personally or professionally, you lacked integrity or showed themselves for lacking integrity, and without breaching any confidences, how that situation turned out, what transpired, and could you kind of lead us through that?
Sure. You were asking when they breached it, right?
Correct.
Yes. We were looking at a potential business partner and going through, its own kind of due diligence. And we came across a side business that this potential partner had. And when we asked this person about it, he said, "Hey, please, whatever you do, don't tell my wife about it." And it was one of those moments where I thought, I can't be in business with a person like this. If you're willing to lie to those you love, you're willing to lie to anyone. And so it was another moment of stepping away. I love how all my examples today, I'm like, here's where I exit. No.
Hey, left.
But it's true because, it's a decision point of who do I want to be associated with? And so when you ask, have you encountered any of these things? Each of those encounters is going to lead to a soul moment in which I say, hey, the profit's not more important, the partnership's not more important. I have to be sitting across people that I trust, that I like, that have the same philosophy. I want to be surrounded by people that I love working with, that we're all passionate about doing the same thing and going in the same direction together and doing it the right way, because there's plenty of space in this life and in this world and in this universe to do things the right way. You don't have to cut corners. And so, yes, I think that moment always will stick out with me, right? To think, wow, this is a loving husband. That particular couple is still together. And he was willing to hide something so from fundamental. What would he be like as a business partner? Which is just another kind of union. So, to me, once again, it's not sometimes about uncovering things in business. It doesn't have to be gigantic. I think people show their character by who they are in just on day-to-day interactions. So when I was trying to think of examples, for this, I'm like, wow, I've got all kinds of examples where, people try to hand me a bag of cash, or, people came to me with like these business ideas that may have been kind of, shady. I won't go there. But what stands out to me aren't those as much as just how people interact on a daily basis and whether they see it or not. It speaks volumes as to who they are and who we are as humans. And that coherence that we were talking about at the beginning, that's everything. Because whether you mean to or not, as you were saying, it's going to slip out. It's going to come out somehow. So my examples tend to be smaller in that way, where somebody said something or asked something of me where I thought, I can't do that. I won't do that. And I won't affiliate with something that puts me in a position where I would have to do that.
Yes. No, absolutely superb. It is the little things. I always say people can't hide who they are. To understand a person's mind just and intentions, just listen to their words. They give themselves away.
Yes,
And sometimes they give themselves away, and it absolutely proves that they are trustworthy and reliable and responsible.
that's right. And those are more often than not, I'm an optimist because I've seen that over and over. There's been so many times when people did act with integrity when nobody was watching, and you come to find out about it later, or they'll say something and you're like, well, that reveals everything about you, whether you knew it or not. And it warms the heart to know that there are so many of these people in this world, and I'd rather affiliate with them all day long and align myself with groups of those. And hopefully all of us in that boat together can truly make a positive impact in this world.
Yeah. No surprises with those kinds of people. I mean, always the surprises are on the upside, but there's no surprises like, wow, where did that come from? How did I
That's
get
right.
backdoored here? Well, one of the things, Pamina, as we're talking, we have sometimes a younger audience that listens in. What are some of the things you would say to the younger folks starting out, kind of as hints, tips, insights that you would suggest that they focus on as they launch their careers, whether they're working for someone or on their own with their own organization?
If you're new to entrepreneurship, um, just you've got this. It takes perseverance, and it takes passion, and don't let anybody stamp that out. So that's just sort of a side note. But what I wanted to say when it comes to this subject is that when you're starting out, you are focused on, I've got to make this profitable and I've got to make this work. You may be taking on debt. You may be in debt. Uh, those bills may be stacking and mounting and crushing. You may have investors where you feel pressure. Those investors may be mom and dad, where you really feel some sense of responsibility towards repayment. But the quick road, the shortcuts that come due to lack of integrity, due to things that are shady, don't pay off in the end. That's been one of my biggest lessons, is that building this, you've got to build things the right way, and it takes longer. It's going to require more money because oftentimes you're going to need to get lawyers involved. We've got all kinds of lawyers double checking all the things we do, making sure that we're doing things the legal way, the right way. Does it cost more? Yeah. Do people say, like, do you really need to be checking in on that? Well, I'd rather, because I like sleeping and I like waking up knowing I'm doing the right thing. So the long way is oftentimes the right way. Now and then we'll get a beautiful shortcut that comes out of doing the right thing the right way. Somebody along the way will find a shortcut, and that'll be blessed, and they'll be like, that'll work great. It's not that you can't have shortcuts, but I would say long-term entrepreneurial success is built on doing the right thing over and over. And that's why it's the hard thing, right? If this was easy, you've heard this, everybody could do it. Integrity plays a huge role when it comes to entrepreneurship, because it's a discipline to do the right thing, to pass up on the deals that don't align. And it's not just shady deals. Sometimes they're wonderful people, good deals, but there's just a lack of alignment in terms of, are we going to the same place? Is that truly what my business stands for? Is this really the right partnership? So I urge you not to just take the first opportunities that come. Trust that the right opportunities are there for you. And saying no to something is truly saying yes to what you really want, and sitting in that discomfort and sitting in that blank space. Sometimes when you're like, is this ever going to happen? That's oftentimes when it does happen, because you have to empty the cup, create the space, have the capacity to really take on the real partnership, the real deal, the real opportunity.
Yes. Well said. So, Pamina, as we're kind of rounding our corner here and coming closer to our close, uh, I mean, of course, we've been here with Pamina Barkow, CEO of Personal Injury Navigators, very unique and novel offering and service. I'm glad we had this opportunity. I've learned something that I did not know coming into this conversation about what is out there in the marketplace for those that have been injured and those that need help navigating that path to recovery. Also, trustee at University of California, Irvine. Really a delightful conversation. And so, as we get ready to close, and any of our listeners want to get in touch with you, Pamina, what's the best way for them to do that?
Oh, sure. PINavigators.com is our website. You can email us at admin@PINavigators.com. We're happy to share information. If you're trying to get a hold of me, I'm on LinkedIn. You can look me up on Pamina Barkow. So I'm not hard to find, and would love to hear from anyone that has some thoughts.
Wonderful. Well, Pamina, it's been a wonderful conversation. It was a real delight to have you on the Power of Integrity podcast, where leadership aligns with principles. You're a perfect model and a perfect example. Thank you for being out there and helping folks in the way you're helping them every day. I really appreciate our conversation.
Ralph, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast and for really addressing some really important thoughts in society today.
Wonderful. Thanks again.
The information presented in this program is provided for informational purposes only. The information is believed to be reliable, but no guarantee of accuracy is made or implied. Expressions of opinions are as of this date and are subject to change without notice. The information in this material is not intended as tax or legal advice. Please consult a legal or tax professional. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of capital. Ralph Adamo is registered with the securities and are offered through Kovac Securities Inc., member FINRA. SIPC 6451 North Federal Highway, Suite 1201, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33308. Telephone number 954-782-4771. Investment advisory services are offered through Kovac Advisors Inc. Integrity Wealth Management is not affiliated with Kovac Securities Inc. or Kovac Advisors Inc.